I got Sleepy here. Hey, Sleepy, Tony Venuti, what's going on, pal? Where you calling from?
Well, actually, I'm calling from FEMA Region 6 in the south, but how you doing, Tony?
I'm doing well. Thanks a lot. Have you been on the show before? I'm not sure.
I think I may have called in once before. Your voice sounds familiar.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. What's on your mind?
Well, here's what's on my mind is that I've noticed people who try to put together groups of one kind or another, whether it's something fairly exciting or it's something that's as mild as a book club, they're usually, well, I don't know about usually, but there is a trend of, depending on the kind of people and whatnot, of internal balkanization or infighting with inside of a group. So I wanted to know, what would you recommend how people could protect themselves from infighting, as well as once it actually starts, how do you deal with it in an effective manner?
I got a real simple answer, and I'm going to put it to you in a context. When someone, and I often refer to somebody on these TV shows that when they're being interviewed, they get like challenged beyond what's mannerful. They get challenged beyond what is respectful. They're actually almost berated. And what I would say in that case, and in the case of someone disrupting progress in terms of a group, I would say this: Sleepy, you must not like my company. What do you mean? What do you mean, Tony? What do you mean you must not like my company? Well, I'm not enjoying this. I mean, I'm with positive energy in my world. I try to stay away from negative energy, and the only two things that are negative energy that I accept are my family, and I can't choose to who they are, or if it's my work and I have to make a living, so I'll deal with negative energy. But here I am here as your guest, or here you are as my guest, and depending on who got here first, I'm thinking that you must not like my company, so why don't I just leave? Or why don't you just go? But if you don't have anything positive, because even when you're negative, I mean, there's such a thing as constructive criticism as opposed to criticism, right, Sleepy?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks will take constructive criticism and view that as a personal attack on their
then they're
on themselves.
just as wrong. Then they're just as wrong. Okay? If you can't take the heat, or if the heat you're making isn't right, then you're going to be invited to leave because you're taking away the harmony in the universe. And if I created a group, whatever that group might be, Sleepy, and they all came to me, and I've got like 2 or 3 out of 20, because there is always one. I've been around small groups for many different kinds of reasons, and there always seems to be at least one in every group, almost like natural law, that by definition have to create some path just to make the universe complete. But I would simply say you must not like being here and contributing positively. I invite you to leave. This is what I would do, Sleepy, and I would do it just like a tough love parent to a friend of your child that didn't want to play nice. Because I'm not going to be subject to somebody's ignorant manner at the expense of others, because before long, wouldn't that whole group suffer? Wouldn't that group disband?
Well, yeah, I mean, probably, but I mean, there has been various people who have all sorts of thoughts on this particular issue. Like, for example, Alan Watt of CuttingThroughTheMatrix.com. I remember he mentioned, he's actually somebody I listen to pretty regularly, one of the very few, and he mentioned that he was, it's a little bit more pessimistic, his opinion, but it's based on the reason of you can't really put together a group of any kind, generally speaking, at least anything long term, primarily due to everyone's social conditioning, to be at each other's throats and that sort of thing. He did, however, say that putting together a book club is fine, but outside of that, anything more exciting he would not recommend. So do you think that social conditioning is also a factor as to why there's an increased probability for internal balkanization or infighting in any sort of group?
Well, it's basically people, okay? People are basically reactionary, and they're selfish, and they're takers. Most people are takers. Most people are not harmony inside their heart. It's just that simple. And anybody that is a perpetuator, anybody who's a perpetuator of negative energy is not going to be accepted in any group that I can control to any stretch of the imagination. And to the degree that I cannot, I mean, if I'm the one taking a risk by performing a meeting or putting together a group, if it's my risk that I'm taking, why in the world I want to subject myself to a bunch of idiots simply because I'm being accepting of this notion that, well, this is just the way it is. Well, you know what? It might be the way it is outside of my influence, but not the way it is inside my influence. And if I can control the horizontal, if I control the vertical, and that's why I'm a business owner, because I don't want to be subject to that which I cannot control, I simply wouldn't have it. It's a very easy question for me, Sleepy. Really, really easy. And for those people that cannot understand that, I might suggest they probably have a problem with their children as well, because they can't control them either.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I also want to know your thoughts on strictly online groups versus like a physical group, or even a physical group that has a web page or something like that. Have you yourself noticed trends of increased or decreased balkanization in various groups, depending on whether they are only an online group versus being an actual physical group that now has physical meetings and does stuff together in the real world? Have you noticed anything like that?
Well, yes, and I'll explain it to you this way. You've almost made a parallel between those who talk as anonymous and those talk identifying themselves. If you'll notice, the people that talk about being anonymous, they're the most contrary, aren't they? The most belligerent, aren't they?
Well, I don't know about that, sir. I mean, they are very flamboyant in certain regards, and arguably a little bit in your face. But some people have also applied the same thing to "We Are Change," and even Oath Keepers to a degree. So I don't know about that exactly. But what are you saying?
I got a problem with anonymous. Period.
Which is?
If you don't want to account for your words by letting me know who's saying them, if you don't want to account for your words by giving me an indication of who you are based upon who you are, I know where you're coming from, I know why you're stating what you're saying, and I've got some kind of bigger understanding to the picture that you're not allowing me to see because you want to remain anonymous, while I identify myself and you can go in my background and see what I'm about? No, I think that's absolutely viral. I think it's along the side of evil. I think anybody that can't look at somebody in the eye and say, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, you look at me and say, I believe they're a non sequitur. How's that?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Of course, the whole subject of privacy is an entirely different one, but I wanted to, and if you want to talk about it, I would be more than happy to talk with you about that, but mainly on the balkanization part. Mm-hmm. So you mainly see it so let me just summarize and just to double check. You're mainly seeing any difficulties with people getting along together as how shall we say, problems with their own personalities?
Yep. Absolutely. They're angry people, pal. They're angry people, and they're taking it on what they see as the collective universe and blogs and the web, the social networking has made it so easily that if you want to create some grief, just like when I was a kid at 10, 11, 12 years old, I called up the pizza place and had them deliver pizzas to people that didn't order the pizzas. Well, imagine that same 10-year-old kid now, that same 12-year-old kid now says, you know what? I can do much more than order a few pizzas to deliver to one location. I can order pizzas worldwide. I can spam. I can do this. I can create all kinds of grief because I'm free to do it because I got Sleepy here. Hey, Sleepy, Tony Venuti, what's going on, pal? Where are you calling from?
Well, actually, I'm calling from FEMA Region 6 in the south, but how you doing, Tony?
I'm doing well. Thanks a lot. Have you been on the show before? I'm not sure.
I think I may have called in once before. Your voice sounds familiar.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. What's on your mind?
Well, here's what's on my mind is that I've noticed people who try to put together groups of one kind or another, whether it's something fairly exciting or it's something that's as mild as book club. They're usually, well, I don't know about usually, but there is a trend of, depending on the kind of people and whatnot, of internal balkanization or infighting with inside of a group.